Welcome to Choosing to Rise, a podcast about growth, faith, and transformation. I'm Dr. Carolyn Kennedy, and today we're talking about something that so many of us wrestle with: letting go of expectations, roles, or relationships that no longer serve our well-being, and doing so without feeling like we're giving up or giving in. This episode is called Detaching Without Drifting: Why Healthy Boundaries Are a Form of Faith. If you've ever felt guilty for setting a boundary, or worried that pulling back makes you less loving, less faithful, or less strong, this conversation is especially for you. Let's be real. Many of us were conditioned early on to believe that being good meant being agreeable, that kindness meant never rocking the boat, especially for women, helpers, and type 9 Enneagram peacemakers like myself. It felt easier to just smile, nod, and keep things smooth. But here's the thing. People-pleasing isn't always obvious, not even to the one who's doing it. Sometimes we hide behind a smile, behind staying quiet, behind always being the easy one. It's just easier to sometimes try to be considerate or mature, when really it's fear in disguise. It's a fear of being misunderstood, a fear of conflict, and a fear of rejection. People-pleasing doesn't always sound like just saying yes. Sometimes it's much more like silence when your soul is screaming no. That was me. I got really good at reading the room, adjusting myself before anyone even noticed that there was tension. I called it being thoughtful. But deep down, I was disappearing. Not all at once, but a little more every time I convinced myself that keeping the peace was more important than keeping myself intact. And that's not peace. That's self-abandonment. Take a moment, if you will, and ask yourself, have you ever been quiet just to keep the peace? Or because you were afraid of what might happen if you spoke the truth? You see, letting go is hard, especially when it's something or someone you cherish deeply. People may not understand, but detaching isn't about bitterness. It's about clarity. It's not about cutting people off. It's about recognizing what's costing you more than it's feeding you. Now, it can be easy to let go when it's obvious that something is unhealthy, when the relationship is toxic, when a job is abusive, when a habit is destructive. No one questions those choices. They applaud them. You get support, validation, even congratulations for finally walking away. But what about the slow fades? What about the things that aren't clearly bad, just no longer right? What about the relationship that's not abusive, but even with love and effort, it feels increasingly distant and disconnected? Or worse, the one where you're still fighting to hold on, and it feels like the other person quietly walked out a long time ago, emotionally, spiritually, or mentally, even if they're still physically there. Or what about the job that looks great on paper, but drains your soul every day? Or maybe even a commitment that you once felt called to, but no longer feel connected to. Those are harder because there's no obvious villain, no dramatic exit, just a quiet knowing down deep inside that something no longer fits. And then there's the grief of admitting it. And that's when letting go takes the most faith. Because no one claps for that. You may not get a round of applause or a clear sign, but regardless, your soul still deserves peace. You can love someone deeply and still realize that staying in constant closeness is costing your peace. You can be grateful for a past season and still understand that it's no longer your present calling. Think of it like this. Boundaries are guardrails, not walls. They're not meant to keep people out. They're designed to keep you from crashing. And choosing to protect your peace, that's not weakness. It's wisdom. It's spiritual maturity. But the tricky part is detaching without losing yourself. Because when you've built your identity around others' approval, or even around certain roles, certain routines, or expectations even, stepping away, detaching, can feel like unraveling. Our goal shouldn't be to detach and disappear. The goal should be to detach while staying grounded, to create space, not distance, to make room for healing, not isolation. This isn't just about people. It's about setting boundaries around anything that pulls you away from peace. Even if at once that thing felt purposeful. It could be a role that no longer fits, a rhythm that's become unsustainable, or even a story you've been telling yourself that's keeping you stuck. So if you want to detach with not drifting and staying anchored, here's three ways. Here's three ways that you can stay anchored while letting go. Anchor 1. Know who you are outside of the roles you play. You're not just what others expect of you. You are more than what you do for other people. Anchor 2. Surround yourself with people who see you, value you, and acknowledge that your journey matters. Anyone who tries to convince you to stay stuck, to keep playing the role that they expect, they don't deserve access, backstage access that is, to your life. And anchor 3. Let yourself grieve and grow at the same time. It's okay to feel sad and still believe and still know that you're making the right decision. Boundaries may be healthy, but that doesn't mean that they don't hurt. Although people may not realize it, at least for me, detaching at first, it doesn't feel like freedom. It just feels quiet. But what I'm learning is that healing can come in that quiet. That quiet makes space for the healing. And sometimes the hardest things to release isn't a person or a routine or a habit. It's a hope, a dream. It's the story that you told yourself about how things were supposed to go. Maybe you've kept things the same longer than you should have because you thought that faithfulness meant silence and that being strong meant holding on at all cost. But real peace isn't about pretending to be okay. You can honor what was and still release what no longer brings you peace. Now understand, I'm not at all talking about walking away from every hard thing or about making impulsive decisions. What I am talking about is checking in with yourself honestly and prayerfully and asking whether the version of you that's showing up is healthy, whole, and grounded in truth. You can absolutely still love, care, and be faithful while setting limits and protecting your mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. Faith doesn't always mean holding on tighter. Sometimes faith means that you have to loosen your grip and you have to trust that peace can come through release and not just resilience. Sometimes faith isn't about endurance. Sometimes it's about surrender. Surrendering the illusion that you have to hold it all together, alone and at all cost. And again, to be clear, this isn't about cutting people out. It's about releasing the pressure to carry what was never yours to carry alone to begin with. And if you're considering detaching from someone or something, make sure that you take time to discern. Be sure that the next step is actually your next step and not just a reaction to a hard day or a heavy moment. You deserve clarity, not chaos while you rise. So this week, why not give yourself one good hello by writing a boundary affirmation? Something like, I can care deeply and still say no. I can choose peace without guilt. I can walk away in grace, not in anger. I can honor what I believe without dishonoring who I am. It's not about being selfish. It's about integrity. It's about growth. See, somewhere along the way, many of us learn to associate faithfulness with saying yes, with staying quiet, with putting ourselves last. Maybe it came from how we were raised, what we saw modeled, or the belief that loving others always means sacrificing ourselves to keep the peace. But God told us to love our neighbors as ourselves, not instead of ourselves. See, truth, faithfulness, it includes honoring the values, the voice, and the wisdom God placed within you. You were never created to disappear inside someone else's comfort. And you don't have to prove your love by abandoning yourself. So this week, let your boundaries speak with kindness. Let your no be rooted in peace. And let your life reflect the faith that makes space for wholeness, not just survival. Taking care of yourself absolutely does not mean that you failed. It just means that you're listening to the truth within. The kind of truth that leads to healing instead of hiding. Again, just be sure that you don't confuse a hard moment with a finished season. Thank you for joining me today on Choosing to Rise. I hope this conversation gave you space to breathe a little deeper and to walk forward a little lighter. If it resonated with you, I'd be honored if you'd share it with someone else who might be facing the same tension. And if you haven't already, I love it if you click like and subscribe, leave a review, or reach out to me on my website at www.onegoodhello.com. All spelled out, onegoodhello.com. And if you want to read a little more about people pleasing, check out week 8 of my devotional, When You're Ready to Begin. And you may also want to reflect on Galatians 1:10. It says, "Am I now trying to win the approval of human beings or of God? Or am I trying to please people? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ." Just something to reflect on. Until next time, may you listen inward, live upward, and remember, you weren't made to disappear. Keep choosing to rise and learning to thrive, one good hello at a time.